We're live here in Mompreneurs. Welcome to episode 6 of Inspired to Thrive. I have the gorgeous Kim Herman joining me this evening. Thank you for being here, Kim.
Thank you for inviting me. Good evening, everybody.
That's it. So tonight the topic is, you may have seen it, it's life-changing impact of radical responsibility. That's the topic. How could I even forget that one?
It's a bit of a mouthful when you say it, though, isn't it?
It is. That's true. So I just a little bit, I'm not huge on introductions, but a little bit about Kim. So Kim is a holistic transformational therapist and coach, and she's a master family freedom protocol practitioner, which I'm really intrigued to know more about.
Sure.
I haven't sort of explored that with you, so I'm really intrigued. Intuitive guide and certified Thrive Factor profiler as well. So again, I'm interested in learning more about that. I do a lot of profiling myself, but I haven't come across that one. So that's really interesting. And Kim, I know you're very passionate about helping women, and families really sort of heal their heart, from that beautiful heart space. So I think it's fantastic you've come along to join us, and I'm sure you'll be sharing some of your story. When I believe it was around about late 30s, you became burnt out and stressed and a lot of anxiety going on, and now having healed yourself and found these beautiful tools that helped you on your journey, you're now using those tools to help others. So I think that's fantastic, and I'm sure a lot of our mompreneurs will relate to at times. We all have the anxiety and the stress and the overwhelm and everything just creeping in with what we have to do and juggling everything that we have going on in our life. So if you're watching this live, please say hi. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the comment box as well. Ask any questions at any time throughout, and I'll intervene and manage that with Kim. If you're watching the replay, please hashtag replay, and again, ask any questions, tag Kim or I, and we'll come back and make sure we can answer them for you. And if we can't answer them, we'll find the expert that can. That's our promise to you. So Kim, let's get into it then. What I love to start with really is asking, my guests is, what do most people misunderstand about the work that you do?
Gosh, there's several things that I think people misunderstand. I think because some of the tools that I use incorporate aspects of hypnotherapy. And so I've had people say, are you going to brainwash me and, take over my mind and control my mind? And that's a real misconception that your hypnotherapist actually can't do that. You can't hypnotize someone to do something that their unconscious mind is not willing to do. Yeah. And a lot of the processes that I use when I'm helping people go through the healing process is I actually guide them to access their own learnings, what they need to learn, what is it they need to know to be able to transform and move forward, because I don't know what you need to learn or heal exactly to get what it is you need to have that breakthrough. It's very individualized. You could have 3 different women come with self-esteem issues, low self-esteem, and each one of them, what it is they need to learn and reprogram their mind at an unconscious level could be completely different. So that's one misconception, big, huge one. And I think the other one is that when you go on that healing journey and you have a transformation, that you're going to live the rest of your life without having any emotional issues pop up in your life. And the reality is life is ups and downs. Yeah. The great thing is that when you do take the time to heal your triggers, to heal your childhood, to heal your traumas, you find the downs are not as low, you find you don't stay down as long, and you do cope with that ups and downs a lot better than when you suppress and don't deal with it. So I think that's another misconception that I think people sometimes have.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said, and being a coach myself, I can resonate with both of those things that happen. And I think all we can do is, like you demonstrated, is be the tour guide, if you like, and
Exactly.
guide them on their journey, because everyone has their own map of the world, if you like, the way they see things, what they believe in, whether even they are their own beliefs. That's another thing that is very fascinating when people start to understand that. So so thank you for sharing that. So let's get into this radical responsibility. So what does radical responsibility mean to you?
Radical responsibility means to me, it's about taking full responsibility for your whole life, regardless of what your past looks like, regardless of what's happened to you in your life. It's about developing the mindset where life is happening for you, not to you, realizing that you have the ability and the power to co-create your life, I guess. And I guess it's about, it's taking ownership and responsibility for your life and creating it the way you want it to be. And getting out of that being a victim of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing that sometimes I find, I don't know whether you find the same with clients. It's when they understand, where they are on that scale of victim and victor, if you like, you know what I mean, and where they are on the cause and effect, but there's lots of different names for it. That in itself can be very enlightening for people to realize that they actually don't have to be suppressed like this. They have the right to say no. They have the option or the choice to make, for themselves, to become responsible for themselves. And I think sometimes that gets lost along the way. We get so, caught up, and I know throughout my own journey, it's the same. You get caught up in pleasing everyone else, and doing everything for everyone, and that sort of thing, that you forget about yourself and taking responsibility for yourself. Because, I don't know about you, Kim, but I spent a lot of years externalizing everything, looking outside of me, for the answers. And that's just not the way it works, is it?
It's not the way it works. And unfortunately, the unconscious mind, it tries to keep us there because it knows that when we go internally that we're going to be uncomfortable. The good thing is, when you go to someone that's using tools like yourself and the tools I use, is that uncomfortableness, you don't have to stay there for long. And I think it's also a big wake-up call for people to realise that taking radical responsibility for your life isn't, we can have awful things happen to us. People experience awful traumatic events in their lives, and taking radical responsibility for your life doesn't mean that you're to blame necessarily for those events. It doesn't mean that you weren't a victim of something terrible, but it's about taking that responsibility, moving forward, and knowing that you don't have to stay the victim forever.
Yeah, that's right. This is a choice there. I don't know. I mean, Pen, would you like to share? I'd love to know, share part of your journey, perhaps, around
I'd love to.
How you've come to be radical responsible for yourself.
I mean, I guess for me, when I look back, I never had anything I would consider major trauma, but then you would agree with me on this. Trauma is what's perceived. So we can have, a baby could experience trauma because their mum was out in the garden and didn't hear them crying, and they were left for 45 minutes crying. That could be perceived as traumatic by but I did grow up in a family that, although they loved me, they weren't very nurturing. It was a very strict family. My dad was in the military, and I just felt I was the sort of person that really needed that nurturing love, and I didn't feel I got it. So I developed a real sense of poor self-esteem. I felt like nothing I did was good enough. I was the overachiever to try and get my parents' attention. Then I rebelled and played up to try and get their attention. But I basically moved out of home quite young at 17 and was very independent. And I kind of just pushed everything down and got on with life. I had a few not so healthy bordering on abusive relationships. I guess that people pleaser really came out of me because of the poor self-esteem. And when I was fortunate to meet a beautiful man who I'm still married to, and we had 2 children, and I think the children were the catalyst of my healing. I very much was a control freak, because being a control freak was how I kept control of my life, and was able to wear the masks and keep everything suppressed. Having children, I realised I wasn't in control anymore. And that's when the cracks started to appear. That's when my anxiety reared its head. For me, it displayed as anger. I became very angry at the world. I was triggered by the smallest things and just totally lose it. I was quite verbally abusive to my children because I wasn't coping. And then, because there was so much shame around my behaviour, I then became quite secluded from my friends, because I didn't want them to find out who I was, how I was behaving, because I knew if I saw someone behaving that way, I would not think it was great.
Yeah.
But they really were the catalyst. And I, for a long time, lived in a place there, it was my parents' fault. It was the way I was brought up. You know, if I had had a more loving childhood, then I wouldn't be how I was. And I was very much stuck in that way for a while. But when I took radical responsibility, I think that the catalyst was one day, my son, he would have been around 7, and we were getting ready for school, and he spilt his glass of milk over the table, and it was like this switch got turned on me, and I totally went psycho. I yelled and screamed at him, swore at them, at my kids, like totally lost it, out of control. And I just stopped, because there was these 2 pairs of eyes sitting there looking at me in absolute fear of their mother. And I remember dropping to the floor on my knees and just bursting into tears, and realising that I, and I alone, well, not by myself, but it was up to me to change this and to do something about it. And that's when I really started taking the steps, finding people that I resonated with, start my healing process, start my journey. And really then that's when I started taking radical responsibility. And a lot of people ask me now, you know, do I feel guilty about what I did to my children? There was a time where I definitely did. But the past is the past. I can't change it.
Yeah.
I find comfort knowing that I took that responsibility, and I've been a model to my 2 children who are now in their teens, that you can change, that you can heal your life, and, you know, set an example for them, I guess.
Well, that's right. And I'm sure that they'll take a lot of comfort and guidance, if you like, from seeing how you've turned your life around, you know, and the way that you interact with them now, you know. And I think that when they get to a certain age, you can sit down and have those conversations, you know, because they'll start to understand, you know, that by taking responsibility for your own life, you know, regardless of your age or what's happened, like you say, your deemed trauma, you know, because it all comes in different shapes and sizes. Then you can have the choice of how you react and how you respond. And I think that's a beautiful gift that you are modeling to them, you know what I mean? And that itself is healing, you know, for the family. So
it is amazing what they pick. It's amazing what they pick up, because I have overheard my daughter, who's now 14, like talking to her friend, and I can hear that she's, you know, someone joked and said she sounds like a little life coach already, but I can hear her like repeating some of the things I might have said to her, or, you know, if she's been trying to help a friend work through something, and in an empowering way. So, that's evidence in itself that I have been a model to them.
That's right. And I think that's so true, because I resonate that with myself as well, because I think it's the language that we use, you know, and how we are, our way of being, and how they observe as being, in certain situations, perhaps there's an aggressive situation, or there's an event that, there's danger around, or whatever. It's how we respond, how we react in those moments that they remember. And you're right, the smallest of things, it's like, out of the mouths of babes, so to speak, they don't miss a thing.
Oh, no.
Children don't miss a thing,
Yeah.
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 All good?
Yeah. You just dropped out for a minute there. I'm back now.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, so like I say, children don't miss a thing, so I think the good, bad, and the ugly, they see it all and they hear it all. And I think whilst I do believe it's important not to physically coach, the ones that we love, I think, vibe with our way of being and how we are with them, and our language, then, it indirectly, it happens anyway, or they learn, or they observe, and they ask questions, and I love it when they get curious about things. What does that mean? I used to get asked by my stepkids.
Yeah. And I think too, I see in the women I work with, the ripple effect when a woman works on herself. I know when I was really struggling, my children's behavior was not great. They were responding to me, and I remember thinking, gosh, they're just going out of their way to push my buttons and piss me off, But really, it was just because I was so intolerant, because I was so on edge. And I found when I went on my healing journey, that ripple effect in the way my children then responded to me and their energy within the home, that their behaviour improved.
Yeah.
The whole family benefited.
Definitely. Yeah.
In
just
every way.
Say hi to Araha there. Lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Yeah. So I think so you mentioned when you went through your I guess rediscovery of yourself, or reconnection with yourself, and your healing, you had some steps. Do you want to share with us one of the steps, and perhaps the one that relates to your the family freedom protocol?
So Family Freedom Protocol is really just a program of training that I've been through that's enabled, I guess, I can work with women individually, but I've also done masters where I'm able to go in and work with families, because essentially we might have a teen that's struggling emotionally, but we need to look at the whole dynamics within the family, the language that's being used. It's amazing how we can fall into habits which may not necessarily be conducive of a positive environment. We may not realise that it's not, like we're just doing it. And it's not about placing blame, it's about creating an environment that's going to allow healing for the whole family. But I guess to me, the first steps is it's asking for help, finding someone that resonates with, resonate with, that you feel safe with, that can take you on that healing journey, and give yourself permission to go deep. Healing can be a bit like an onion and layers, and it can be uncomfortable, but it's not uncomfortable for long. And what's on the other side is so much better than where you are starting off. As scary as it feels, on the other side is always so much better.
That's right, because I know within Mompreneurs, this group, we talk about business and we talk about wealth, but we also focus on self-care. And I think, what you're talking about here is really that self-care, for us as women and, business owners, mompreneurs, if you like, because sometimes we use distractions, right? To avoid looking into, I think, I'll think about that next week, or I'll maybe, talk to someone, or try and find, I'm busy right now. I've got this to do, that to do. So how do you feel about that, Kim?
I actually find that that's one of the most common things women do, is they create a super busy life to distract themselves from what's going on. Because like you said, when you're busy, you don't have the time to look at it. And I see that as one of the most common ways that women can distract themselves. Obviously there's other ways. Some women will drink to cope. They may not be drinking a lot, but it might be that they need those 2 glasses of wine at the end of the night to just really kind of cope. But again, it's still kind of distracting them
Well, it's
from
an
dealing
addiction.
with
It's
other
an
feelings.
addiction, really,
It is
isn't it? It's
addiction. Yeah.
addiction,
You know,
addiction
it can be
behavior.
screens, social
Yeah.
media that we can become, you know, in the evenings, we'll spend the night scrolling to avoid sitting with our own emotions. Yeah, definitely the keeping busy, I reckon, is one of the number one. And I think when you're a woman in business, it's really easy to do that. I was running a naturopathic clinic at the time. So as well as being I was running a practice part-time and at home mum the other time and helping my husband in his business. So I really, and when the wheels started falling off, my initial reaction was, oh, maybe I'm too busy and that's why I'm not coping. But it wasn't what was causing the wheels to come off. It was the stuff that was wanting me to take a look at. And I think too, because a lot of my discomfort and my issues was around family, around the relationship I had with my parents and the way I was brought up, to how I wanted to raise my family. And I think that's why it was a big catalyst for me, having my children, because I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to be like my parents. I wanted to be a love and nurturing mother and, you know, everything that I didn't get.
Yeah,
and you know what? I love my parents dearly. And through my healing, I have found a place of accepting them as they are, fully understanding that they did the best that they could based on the way they were brought up. And I don't have expectations of them. Because
that's right. I think that's the beautiful thing that you just articulated there, is that when we have a healing journey, and I agree with you, like you said before, it's like peeling an onion. The journey continues. We think sometimes, oh, we'll go through this and we're done. That's it. We're fixed. Tick it off. It's not like that. It's a continual journey. And I think I've grown to love that. And when I feel confusion coming on, I'm thinking, great, I've got a new breakthrough coming, or there's something else for me to see, and another lesson or a blessing for me to learn. But I think, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It'll come back.
It's okay.
Just sending the little man in the lift down to pick it up. Pick up the file.
You are right. It's like new level, new devil, I say. Like you move.
Yeah, through the cycles. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's right. Now, that's what I was going to say. And I think that once we start doing that, we learn to sort of meet people where they're at and not have the expectations, or because for me, what I realized was having expectations for people only led to disappointment, because then they wouldn't do, or it wouldn't happen, or there was a promise made, it wasn't kept, this thing didn't happen. And all of a sudden I would just be the one that was really disappointed. Then I'd be angry and frustrated, because it didn't happen. So why say you can do something and then not do it? You would, then there would always be an argument. So I think it's a beautiful realization around that. Araha's agreeing with us. I think actually after this, I might introduce you to. The reason I'm saying that is Araha and her daughter Erina, they founded a charitable organization called Break the Cycle. And it's been going a few years now, and they help families after loss for suicide.
Huge.
Break suicide prevention things. And the way that they work is just phenomenal. They bring the families together, and then they split them into groups. So the dads are together, the mums are together, the teenagers and the kids, and work with them through the loss, but then bring them back as a family. And I'm just wondering if even sharing, some of your tips and tricks, or having a chat on the phone, may give some other ideas or spins on how the Freedom Family protocol, if it's appropriate. I feel
I'd love to have a chat with her.
Connection.
That sounds great. I would love to chat with her.
Yeah, because I think you're all in the same sort of area, north of the river. So I think
it does take a whole family in those situations to help heal and recover. And you often find that there can be cycles of trauma and cycles of anxiety or depression that run in the family, and by them going through a healing process together can help, like their association's called, break that cycle.
No, it's fantastic work that they do. So having gone through those steps then, and Do you feel, I'm assuming you're the same as me, still feeling it's a healing journey, an ongoing journey?
Absolutely, it's always a journey. And I think, like you said before, I now get excited when I start feeling uncomfortable, or if I hit a bit of a low point, I'm like, okay, what is it I need to look at? Every now and then I forget and I need someone to remind me, because I think we're all human and we can
That's human
sometimes
nature.
get caught up in what's going on in our lives. But I get excited now because I think, okay, there's a new breakthrough coming. There's a new level coming. Let's see what happens. Let's see what's going on here. And sometimes I'm able to do that on my own, using my tools, doing some inquisitive journaling, spending some time in meditation and just, getting a feel for it. And when I'm in a stick, when I'm feeling stuck and that's not working for me, well, then I'll reach out to a colleague and say, look, I'm feeling a bit stuck. Can you give us a hand unearthing what's going on so we can shift it? Which, it means I have the power to do that. I don't have to sit there and suffer.
So I think the awareness that you have when you start this journey is a beautiful gift, isn't it? Because you do have that awareness that actually there's something not quite right, and I love to bring my insatiable curiosity, at that moment and dig into it. For myself, I realize I recognize I have a pattern of digging and going internally and looking. And sometimes I forget that I have this beautiful raft of friends and colleagues, that I've trained with on different modalities that I could reach out to, and I don't always reach out. Do you find it easy to reach out?
Look,
or have you always?
No, I'm a bit of both. There's times when I find it easy to reach out, and there's times where I don't. I haven't really worked out why. Sometimes it's easier than others. I think, I'm okay with owning that I'm not doing well if I'm not, or if I need help with something. But I haven't really pinpointed. I'm lucky my husband works in the mindset space as well. He works with men. And so we kind of have this agreement to call each other out in a nice, positive way.
That's good.
Yeah. Because, like I said earlier, if I'm not doing so well and I'm stuck in that space for too long, then it affects everyone in the family. It affects our marriage. It affects the relationship with the kids. And we call each other out on that now.
I think that's beautiful that you can have that open relationship like that, and I have it with, my partner, and this is really the first relationship that I've experienced that reciprocity. That's the word.
Reciprocity.
That's the one.
Reciprocity.
Another word to say, isn't it? This is the first relationship where I've really experienced that, and and he's really to the point, and he'll say what he feels. And initially I thought, oh my gosh, this is like refreshing. You know what I mean? I found it really refreshing to have that deep conversation and not to be offended or upset if he said, do you realize that was really controlling or something? I think, oh, thank you. I thought, it's not something that you would normally say, is it, when someone said that? Or that wouldn't be me in the past.
Yeah.
But now I embrace that, and I like, that, and I think I want to explore that, so why does he feel I'm controlling? Sometimes, yes, I'm perhaps a mirror, you know what I mean? It's a different perception. There's all sorts of different conversations that we can have. But also that ability to say, with love, care, and respect for him and for me, that actually I don't want to have this conversation right now. I need to think about what you've said, and let's come back and talk about it, without either of us getting upset or door slamming or, all that sort of stuff that goes on in relationship, that we know. So I think that when you have a certain level of awareness and you do understand that, the process, and start taking responsibility for yourself, when you can really see the changes, it opens up, to have that sort of conversation, and you're in all relationships, really.
Yeah. And I think it, like you said, in all relationships, if I meet someone, I think, oh, they're triggering me, or I'm not sure about them, the first place I look is at me. Why do I feel triggered? And look, maybe it is, it's just not someone I connect with, and that's okay, because we don't get along with everyone. But other times it's because they're triggering me because it's something, like you said, they're a mirror to me, and I'm like, okay, right. I need to look at that. So it's a positive habit to get into when you become aware. Like you said, it's definitely again, comes back to taking responsibility for yourself, taking responsibility to how you react in situations, taking responsibility for your behaviour. And I think another thing I'd like to add in with ups and downs for women too is also recognising that as women that we're not as constant as men. We obviously have that hormonal influence, and we do cycle in our mood, and to a degree, a lot of that is completely normal. Like, I know that there's a week of my cycle when I'm not very motivated, when I am a bit flat, and I kind of know, I've just learned to embrace that now. And I working, you know, being a mum in business, I'm able to structure my business around that.
That's right. And I totally agree with you. I follow the phases of the moon, you know, the lunar cycle and you know, our own cycle. And I think once you understand that, and you know, when the different phases are, it helps you understand a lot of what goes on at certain times of the month. You know what I mean? So perhaps we should do a live on that at some point.
We should, because I even have a chart on my fridge that has the season cycles of, I guess, a woman's menstrual cycle, and I put a little magnet in it on where I am, and I've told my 2 children and my husband what it means, so they can see. Okay, Mum's in that.
Mum this week.
Don't push Mum's buttons because she's not going to be very tolerant this week, or you know, it kind of gives them a heads up, without me having to tell them. They can just see it there.
No, I think that is a good topic that we should do, and it's probably relevant for, you know, all the groups that we do, because I think as women, or even as primarily as women, but I think these cycles do affect men as well. I haven't really gone into a lot of it, but I think it does affect you know, energy and different things.
I think it's great for men to understand this, for their partners, for them to understand it, because they're not taught it. They're taught, they might get taught at school now about girls' menstrual cycles, but they're not taught about how the cycle of moods, their cycle of energy, the cycle of their motivation. And you know, when men understand that, it can really make a difference to their relationship with their partners.
That's right. It's like they just, you know, don't always feel or have to feel like they're treading on eggshells, or they don't know they're saying the wrong thing, or there's always that, you know, friction. I think that's a really good one.
And men like to feel that they're appreciated, so they take it personally when they don't have this understanding.
That's right. Sure. So in coming back to the radical responsibility, then, if you could share 3 steps, if someone is watching this replay and they're really feeling that, you know, shit, I know this is me, you know, I'm just distracting myself by being busy in my business or doing things at home, and not, you know, knowing that I've got stuff to work on, but I don't really, how do I own it, and where do I start? What would you say?
And I guess the first step would be to, you know, allow yourself some quiet time where you can maybe just allow yourself to have a big pour out in journaling and ask yourself, you know, what's going on. You know, allow yourself to just take some deep breaths and connecting with your heart space, and, you know, well, what am I avoiding? I think is one of the big questions I would ask. What's really going on for me? What am I possibly?
I think for me it was more denial. What am I denying? Not even.
What am I
seeing.
denying? What am I avoiding? Could be. And then, you know, getting help, finding someone that can take you on that journey of healing, because you need someone to guide you so that you're going to get the best outcome. I mean, I did years of self-help books, and I benefited from them, but for me, it wasn't enough for me to really have that transformation.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but initially, I mean, I have a huge library behind me, behind this beautiful virtual backdrop, and I call it shelf development. You know, I haven't read every single book. I will, because I do enjoy reading. But often when I was in those times where I felt stuck, or, you know, didn't know what to do, or there's something wrong, I'd wander into a bookshop and I'd pick up the book and I'd read the back, and I think, oh my God, that's what I need. That's that's the solution to my problem. So I'd buy the book, bring it home, put it on the shelf, and it would never be read. So I was building this beautiful shelf development, but I wasn't actually absorbing. And I think the more that we do this, we know that to be able to change, we have to take action, and we have to do something with it, right? There has to be some form of doing, in there. So
and
whilst I agree with you, and there's lots of self-help, and I'm all for self-help courses, but I think it's understanding as well your modality of learning. Some people can pick up a book, take what they need from it, and move forward. Other people need guidance. Other people need to visually see something, or to hear it. There's different modalities of learning as well, isn't there?
I think in a lot of the processes you use and I use, it's really working on that unconscious mind level, and that's where you can make dramatic change fast.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not a huge fan of affirmations on their own, because affirmations can work for people, but they're a lot of work to make it work.
Yeah.
Because you can say you're struggling financially, you could say, money flows to me with ease and grace. And your unconscious mind is sitting there calling bullshit on it and going, well, no, that's not true. And it impacts the energy you're radiating out. When you do the work using processes that work in the unconscious mind, you can change those belief systems. So then the unconscious mind isn't sitting there going, well, that's not true, or, you could never do that because you're not good enough, or whatever.
Yeah.
You're changing that belief system so that the person feels worthy, they feel good enough, they feel like it's possible. Yeah. So, that's where going to a practitioner, it can fast track your healing journey so that it's so much quicker. And it's actually less painful and less uncomfortable, I think, when you work with someone and you're able to fast track it.
Yeah. And that's right. And I think you're right. It's seeking out the right person for you, because like you said before, we don't fit with everybody, and I think it's, for me, in those moments when I look for someone, either a mentor or a coach, whatever I need for, the particular area of my life I want to work on, I always trust my gut instinct, and as well as, doing a bit of research and, reading reviews and all those sorts of things, which I think is sensible, because there's so many things, like out there on the internet these days, and so many people pivoting to online businesses. I just always, say it's a good idea. This is why I want to build this beautiful community of mompreneurs. So there should be someone in our own mompreneur community that can help you, with whatever you need, whatever problem you have, that we can all help and serve each other, because when the tide rises, all boats rise, so that's really what I want to achieve with this group.
Yeah. And I think the third step, which I hadn't got to yet, is really accepting that it is a journey, that there can be ups and downs, and that just because you feel like you've fallen off the wagon doesn't mean you can't hop back on. Like, value and know you're worth it and keep going.
Yeah. And I think, again, around that very, very valid point, because sometimes it's like dieting, for example, for me, right? Years and years I've dieted, tried to lose weight and everything. And I would be so strict with myself that, right, I'm on this diet, that's it, I can't move. If I did something wrong, fall off, I just feel so guilty, useless. I just go and eat to make myself feel better. Now I have a total different mind flex around that, if you like, in that It's 80-20. If I'm good 80% of the time, if I want something, I have it without the guilt. And that has made such a huge difference. It's like, it feels like it's just taking ownership and taking the emotion out of it. Because I think when whatever we're trying to achieve in life is loaded with emotion, that's when we become derailed.
Absolutely.
Whether it's making money, doing a business, healing your trauma, whatever it is, it's and
even physical, and even a lot of physical complaints. That's why I moved from being a purely naturopathic practitioner into this mindset healing space, because I found so many of my clientele, so much of their physical healing had a root cause of underlying emotional stuff.
Absolutely. That's what it all is. We know that.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's 3 universal fears. I'm not loved, I don't belong, and I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And I think the first time I heard that, which was many years ago now, it was such a relief. I think, shit, everybody feels like that. It's not just me. Because I think sometimes we're in our own bubble and you think it's just you. No one else is, having this thing that's going on or feeling this way. But understanding that they're the universal fears of every single human being, I think that sort of was a big weight off my shoulders, so to speak. It allowed me to think, well, okay, that I'm not totally unique here, or trying to struggle on my own. So that others with similar issues.
Oh, I can so relate to that, because I felt the same way, and I was so good at wearing masks. When I had my biggest breakthrough and came out the other side, I remember that's when I eventually shared my story of how I was feeling, how I wasn't coping, how I used to be this psycho mum, and a lot of people were shocked. They were like, really? Like, we had no idea. You look so happy. And I was just so good at wearing masks. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
It was exhausting. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I fitted in. It was like physically exhausting, because you didn't want to, I dare let it down in public, because if anyone saw, and it's just unsustainable. And I reckon I had mask upon mask upon mask upon masks to just try and cope, because especially with social media these days, we have this perception of the world that so many people are, not that people aren't struggling. The reality is most people have periods in their life where they're not coping, where they're struggling, where they don't feel good about themselves. They've got no self-esteem. It's amazing how many women I've met who are physically absolutely stunningly beautiful, and yet they feel ugly. They feel unworthy of a good relationship. They feel not deserving of being loved. And you just look at it, you think, well, how could you possibly feel that way? And it's because for whatever reason they created this belief that's become stuck. And it is refreshing to know that we're not the only ones. And I think it needs to be spoken more, and I think it is being talked about more, especially now. Even for men are starting to talk more about being vulnerable, that it's okay to cry, that it's okay to show your emotions, that they don't have to be this strong,
macho man.
So, I think we're realising now as a society slowly that being vulnerable is a strength.
Yeah. Oh, vulnerable, sexy. I love it. I say, bring it on. I mean, I think it just oozes confidence for me, and I think there is a strength, a real strength in being real and raw, and vulnerable, and just open to whatever comes along. And I think with that comes an acceptance as well, really of who we are in that moment, and that there is always another us, someone else that we're moving toward. It's sort of, it's just like I say, that continual journey, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think the Thrive Factor profiling that I do, that unearthed a whole new level of understanding of who I was as a person when I experienced it for myself. I'd had other sorts of profiling done. I was like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. But I was like, wow, this is who I am. I can see this is who I've always been, and it's who I always will be. And now I know, now I look at all these amazing strengths I have and look at how I can combat the potential challenges that come in my life. And, you know, that part of that healing journey is learning about who you are. I think, to me, taking radical responsibility, that's another step, is really spending that time to allow yourself to discover who you are and enjoy who you are and love who you are. Because
that's it, love it, warts and all. And I think
yes,
even as well with emotions, you know, I call them my 50 shades of grey. There's none of them shamed. They're all welcome.
Yeah.
You know, and even more than that, you know, my own book was Journey to Me Becoming Functionally Selfish. And when I first wrote it, I realized, all right, I thought that this was it. Becoming functionally selfish was good. And it is, but it's a step. But it's actually functionally selfish, because I am more than one self. You know what I mean? There's so many sides of me. Like I have my bitch side. I have, you know, my mother, my wife, my lover, seductress, all these different parts of me, if you like.
yes.
And I think it's learning to embrace all of that. That's the beautiful journey that just keeps on giving, really.
And like you said, embracing emotions. Emotions are good. There's no such thing as bad emotions. Where emotions become a problem is when we get stuck in them.
Yeah.
And we don't move through it. Because
right.
I guess it's energy in motion is an emotion. And it's when we don't flow through the process and feel it, acknowledge it, and then let it go. It's when we become stuck in it, or we push it down and try to ignore it, that they become problematic. That it's okay to get angry sometimes. It's okay to, you know, feel what I guess some people term negative emotion. To me, all emotions are normal.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes I remember a while ago, I got up one particular morning and I thought, okay, what's going on with me today? You know, and I felt this, you know, I don't know what had happened or whether someone said something, whatever. And I just went out and I announced, okay, Fiona the bitch is here today. You know, so I'm gonna live with it. I'm gonna let it ride out. She's here for a reason. I need to see where this is going to go. And everyone just sort of like went to the all four corners of the house. And, you know,
I love that.
It's funny. But
you're right. There are days we wake up and we do feel bitchy, and we're just like not in the mood for life.
Yeah, don't mess with me today. You know, that's it. Just leave me be. I'll do my own thing, you know. And it's I always giggle about it still, but I thought, well, and I'm pleased I did it, because it also allows the rest of my family and friends that see that to do the same, to not feel that they have to show up with, like you said, that mask on. You know, we're taking responsibility for who we are, and if we're feeling shitty or crappy or happy, it doesn't matter. We're still us. We're still, you know, ourselves, right? You know, it's just in that moment. And you're so right as well. You know, Facebook, I call it fake book sometimes. And, you know, that's why I always say to people, just be careful, you know, who you follow and who you're influenced by. Just check things out, because there are so many, you know, rogues on there, and fake profiles, things like that. And it's a snapshot in time, isn't it? It's Instagram. So it's like an instant shot of that particular, exactly what people want you to see. So I think it's good when you find people that are real and raw, and, you know, prepared to be vulnerable and tell their story. That I certainly find that I migrate more to those people, you know, from a perspective as well.
I agree. I actually find it more inspiring when people are real and raw. I think it's important to distinguish between someone that's real and raw and someone that's sharing a low part of their life because they want the attention. So they're still stuck in that place, because you can come across those people, oh, poor me, oh, he did this. They're kind of stuck in that victimhood for attention. But people that are real and raw and are sharing their journey and talking about their journey coming out of it, or reflecting back on it after they've come out of it, is so inspirational. It shows people what's possible. I
Yeah,
think
that's right.
it helps give people hope. It
Mm.
helps look at the positive side of things rather than focusing on oh, poor me.
Yeah,
And
that's
don't get
right.
me wrong, we all have days where we go, oh, poor me. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's right. That's what I mean. You know, we are human being. Well, we're sort of souls having a human experience, is my belief. And I
yes,
think that, yeah, we do. We all, you know, no one, when I don't want to be perfect, I'm happily imperfectly perfect just the way that I am, you know, in this moment. And that's what I want to do, is to live in this moment and embrace this moment, and not wishing that I'm here, there, or, you know, wherever. I'm happy that I'm here with you. You're in your beautiful location. I'm here, and we're connecting. We're talking about radical responsibility. I'm not wishing that I'm somewhere else, you
yes,
know. And I think
yes,
that also is, I think it's a skill that comes, you know, and I'm still learning, you know, how to do it, how to try and stay present. Sometimes I find myself drifting, but I think it's just honoring the time of the people that we're connecting with,
absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely. You've just sparked something else that I wanted to share too about radical responsibility, and that's recognizing that when you are struggling, because when you were talking about wishing where we want to be, not
Yeah,
where we are,
yeah,
because obviously when we're going through something tough, it's normal, I guess, to wish you weren't in it. But I guess the question to ask yourself is, when you are struggling, is, well, what can I do to change this?
mm,
What can I, him, do?
mm,
And is the decision I'm making going to help me achieve where I want to be? Or is it going to keep me where I don't want to be?
yeah, it's true.
Because, yeah, you know, and that's really, I guess, one of the big things when it comes to taking radical responsibility and making decisions in our life. You know, is it life giving or is it life taking? Is it energy giving? Is it energy taking? Is it going to get me where I want to be? Is it achieving?
Yeah, yeah. Is it a path forward, or is it a block, you
Yeah,
know?
is it a path
Yeah,
forward or is it a block?
yeah,
And, you know, I often teach my clients when they're in a sticky situation to ask themselves, what would I do if I truly loved myself?
mm, beautiful. Yeah,
Or to
or even,
ask
yeah,
themselves, if my best friend came to me with this problem, what advice would I give them? Because
yeah.
usually we give our best friends advice that is helping them move forward, but we tend to not give that advice to ourselves.
Absolutely, we do that. That's for so true. And I think, you know, one of the questions I use a lot with my clients is just, what would love do?
Yes, yeah,
It's
exactly.
just a
Same
simple
thing.
thing,
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, we are all love. You know, my belief is that we are all love, and it's like, what would love do here? You know,
yeah,
and sometimes that is showing compassion. You know, depending empathy. It depends on situations, I guess, and
yeah.
different factors in there.
Yeah, and radical responsibility and taking control in your life doesn't mean that everything's easy and joyous. Sometimes taking radical responsibility means making some difficult decisions.
Mm,
You know, it might mean leaving a relationship that we find we're really not happy in anymore. And it's not an easy step to make, but we know if we make that decision that we are going to feel happier.
that's right.
So I think that's another misconception that some people misunderstand about the healing journey, that, you know, there still sometimes needs to be made difficult decisions that can feel uncomfortable, but
Mm.
still moving you forward.
That's right. Reminds me of a chapter I wrote in a book a couple of years ago now, which was denial, avoidance, and surrender. And that was
Yeah.
exactly that. I was denying myself, denying the thoughts that I was feeling, to let them in. That was the first step. Then I had to, you know, face up that I was avoiding it. You know what I mean? And then once I'd done that, the surrendering was the hardest part, because that was when the tough decisions had to be made, and the relationship breakup and the loss of my stepkids, and, you know, like the family that I had all of a sudden overnight was gone, you know, and it no longer didn't have anything. So I think it's those things that, I don't know, we have to trust ourselves, you know. We have the
We do.
strength. We
And
have the
it's,
strength and the courage to overcome what we need to, you know.
yeah. And it's still like I'm in my second marriage, and my first marriage, I was quite young and we weren't married that long, but I made the decision to leave. And I did break his heart. I just realized that I didn't love him that way. I think I'd ended up in that marriage because I thought that was as good as it was going to get. But then I realized that, even though I loved him, I didn't love him that way. And making the decision to leave was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. And even though I was the one that made the decision, I still had to go through a grieving process.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people didn't. I mean, we were a lot younger, but I know I lost a lot of friends during that. And I think they thought because I was the one that made the decision that it was easy and that I was off just, off living my life. But it was still, I still went through a grieving process. I still, it took me
Did you
time
do
to
that?
get
I'm just
over it.
curious, and feel free not to answer, but
Yep.
did you do that grieving process straight away? Or did you know, like knowing what you know now, looking back on reflection, because I know I didn't. I thought I had, but my grief and loss came probably only about 2.5 years ago in reality for all of my previous relationships,
I think I did grieve it straight away. Even before leaving, I'd started grieving. I was only 23 and I did a lot of binge drinking to cope with it. I turned to alcohol, not every day, but, if I was out socially, that's what I did so that I cope. So I think I did deal with it straight away, and being young at that age, I did second guess, Christmas was coming up. So then I was feeling very alone and should I be back? And, I second guessed whether I'd made the right decision, but I knew it was deep down. Yeah. And, I certainly wasn't in a place where I was on a healing journey then, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I did go through a grieving process, and I probably, when I did go on my healing journey, there were aspects of that breakup that did come up that I did have to revisit and address. Yeah. And I think a lot of it was just self-forgiveness and the guilt that I carried, because he wasn't a bad person. Yeah. He didn't mistreat me or anything. So I actually really did hurt him. And I carried a lot of guilt around that.
Yeah. But by releasing that, yeah.
I mean, we're still, I wouldn't say we're close friends, but we're still associates and we have mutual friends still. And you know what? We've both gone on to have much better lives. He's in a much, I know he's now able to look back and he's grateful.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it would have ended very well if I had stayed. I think eventually we probably would have fallen apart, and it was better then than later on.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was still grieving that happened later.
Yeah, because I know. I know for me, I realized that I was a huge, level 5 codependent. You know what I mean? So I attracted the narcissist. Yeah. And I think, going from one relationship, which is highly abusive, and I then went into a second relationship was abusive, but of a different sort, you know what I mean? And then that rolled forward, and it wasn't till I really started this going inward and, accepting responsibility and awareness for myself that I really realized that it was actually when that relationship with the family broke up, and I just let him take everything out of the house because I wanted him to set up the children, have everything that they needed. And I lived in the house that I have with nothing. I had one chair. I didn't have a fridge. Well, I had one in the garage, but it wasn't where it normally is in the kitchen. And I did that for no couch, no TV. And I probably lived like that about 9 months. Wow. Not that I couldn't afford to go and buy things, but I think that it was the biggest gift that I gave myself, because I would realize how many times I was walking to where the fridge was and I wasn't hungry. So it's I was journaling about what I was feeling, and all of this grief came up, and I just realized that I was grieving the loss of, like a family, really, you know, and
Yeah.
past partners and relationships that, you know, weren't as I dreamt they were going to be, and a whole sort of stuff came up. But it was, you know, and now I've created an environment that I'm just thriving in. But I'm really grateful that intuitively, or however it happened, you know, that I had that time to actually sit with the emotion and realize that I don't need food. I'd always filled the void that I felt inside with things, you know, whether that was shopping or food or, you know, different, I guess, addictions, you know what I mean? That's what they are in reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by not having there and not going and just buying a new sofa and buying and filling up the void, if you like, the metaphorical void was a real void. It was just an empty house, you know, and that really helped me to see, you know, what everything else really the way that it
Yeah,
was.
you really gave yourself the space to be able to look at
Yeah,
everything.
literally.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
That's right. And then I was telling you before now, what was once you know, very weedy and dry and dead grass and everything is now flourishing. It's lovely and green, and the flowers are growing and the garden's growing. So the energy of this space is just, you know, it's beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a real good example of there's blessings and there's lessons in everything that happens to
Oh,
us,
there is.
in everything.
Mm.
And, you know, I look back at that time I made that decision and realized that even though I had terrible self-esteem, I obviously had something there because I had the courage to leave,
Yeah,
because I knew that that wasn't enough for me, that it wasn't that right type of love that I wanted
yeah,
in a relationship. So I kind of was like, well, maybe even though I had terrible self-esteem, there obviously was within me that sign that that I did feel worthy and deserving of something more. And yeah, there's all, you know, I look back at everything that's happened in my life and think, you know, there's so many good things that came out of what at the time seemed like really awful, terrible things.
yeah. That's right. That's right. So getting back to radical responsibility, I know we deviated a little bit there, guys,
Yeah, a
but
little
I'm sure,
bit.
but I think there was a lot of I think on reflection, looking back at this, there'll be a lot of good little nuggets here for, you know, for our mums to dig into, and some inspiration, I hope, of us sharing vulnerably our own stories. You know, that there's it's a beautiful outcome to the end of any journey, I believe. You know, it's just taking
Oh,
that courageous step to start.
yeah.
And so when you've taken the steps, Kim, and you've acknowledged radical responsibility, you've embraced it and welcomed it into your life, what's the outcome?
But the outcome, it's interesting because I say how I used to be a control freak of my life, but that was controlling, micromanaging everything. Having radical responsibility, realize that you are in control of creating your life on a big scale. That if we're feeling unhappy, like when I say feeling unhappy, I'm talking long term, stuck feeling unhappy, that we have that power to change it with a decision. That there's always a choice.
Yeah.
And that, I'm all about empowering other people and other women now, and I find that it's so empowering. You feel empowered. You then feel more confident. You have more self-esteem. I find you're better at setting boundaries, and on, you know, within your relationships, within your energy, with your time. You find a different place of self-respect, a new level of self-love. You realize it's actually self-love, not just self-care. They're completely different. You find a level of self-love, and it's just a level of empowerment that I never had ever felt before.
Yeah, that's it. And I think with that comes, for me, it's what I find, you know, like when I have these discussions about responsibility, instead of for myself, even just the simple things like procrastination, overwhelm, disappear.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So if you're feeling stuck, you know what I mean, in your business, and you know there's something you need to think about, but you don't know, but you're getting so overwhelmed because everything's just piling on top, and you're using busyness to distract yourself, then I think the steps that Kim's gone through, and taking radical responsibility, or just responsibility to start with, just some step towards responsibility for yourself, really is one of the keys to unlocking that constant overwhelm and procrastination cycles that happen, as we all know, as business owners and mums, and even if you're not a business owner, I think the overwhelm and procrastination still happens in life, and sometimes when things get too much.
Yes, yeah, it does. The overwhelm reduce because you realize that you have control and you can make a decision in changing it.
Where it just seems less overwhelming, doesn't it, really?
And I think too, some people might need to explore if they have any negative emotions or beliefs around the word responsibility that can stem from our childhood, because where you should be more responsible, or you're not being responsible, and we can have negative connotations and negative memories attached to that word. So if you do find that word responsibility triggers you, maybe do a little bit of exploring as to why that might possibly be.
Absolutely. I get that a lot with selfish. When I say functionally selfish, I can't be selfish. I've got to share everything. If I keep it all to myself, like my own self-love, if I keep that for me, then I'm being selfish. And it is. You're right. That's a beautiful example, because it's that negative connotation that often through our upbringing, we've learned or attached to that word. So I thought that's fantastic advice, to sit down and journal with that.
Or change it to something else, like self-empowered, or find another word that you can replace it with if you find it is too much of a trigger for you. Then I find self-empowerment self-empowered is a word you could replace it with. I just wanted to bring that point up, because I know I have had some people comment like, "Oh, I don't like that word responsibility."
That's a great point for us to start wrapping this up on and ending it. So I really want to thank you, Kim, for joining me tonight. We've taken up some of your valuable time, but I really feel that what you shared with the group in this live today is very, very valuable. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed our chat this evening. It's been great.
That's great. And what I'd love you to do, if you like, underneath this live in the comments, just pop in how people can connect with you, whether you've got a Facebook group or a site or a web page or a free PDF, anything like that. Just drop it in there, and then even the people that are watching on replay, they'll have a way to connect with you as well as we move forward in the future.
Absolutely. I have actually got a freebie that I'll pop in there, which interestingly enough is about helping overcome overwhelm. So awesome. 3 powerful practices to help you overcome overwhelm. So
that sounds perfect.
So I'll pop the link for that in underneath.
That's lovely. Well, thank you so much, Kim. You enjoy the rest of your week of adventures, learning and growth. I'll call it that. And I'll chat to you soon.
Thanks so much, Fiona. It was lovely chatting with you. Have a good evening, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.